How's it going, YouTube? My name's ElvinNinja7, your resident Mistweaver Monk and favorite WoW healing content creator. Guys, today we're going to take a look at all 7 healing specs and talk about what's different coming into Season 4 and how they feel in Season 4 as I've tested them all on the PTR and which one you should main in Season 4. Now, for starters, Season 4s, whenever they do this whole like recycled content thing, they're all about exploration. These are kind of what a lot of guilds take time off during. So a lot of guilds are not going to be raiding. The meta is going to look a little wonky. People are going to be playing what they just want to test out for Season 4. So for you, you should feel encouraged to try something new. And that's what we're going to talk about today is just all the healing specs, how they feel. Let's get into it. So jumping into things, we're going to talk about Preservation Evoker. Now in Season 3, their tier set is really powerful. You know, your empowered spells have a small chance to send out a small living flame on people. Those living flames can apply echoes, which then kind of further your rotation. So it feels very fluid. You're basically always alternating between a spell that in some way applies an echo and then a spell that cashes in on that echo. But it kind of, in a sense, the only way I can describe it is that it felt a little too fluid. Like, I know that sounds like a stupid issue to have, but just hear me out, okay? You're in a Mythic Plus environment, and you send out your temporal anomaly, applying echoes to everyone that it shoots through. You then cash in all of those echoes by casting a Dream Breath. So you're applying this massive hot on everyone to keep them topped up through the next big slam of damage. But then that Dream Breath applies echo to like 2 of the DPS and then like maybe yourself. You're like, oh, that's good luck. But everyone's full health. Should I just sit on these small echoes or should I cash them in? And should I do damage right now during this downtime? But I have these echoes sitting here. Like it just felt weird and a little clunky. Now in a raid environment, that issue was, I'm sure, not an issue at all. I did not play raiding in Season 3, but I'm sure having too many echoes just does not exist, especially when you do those giant Emerald Communion ramps. I'm sure no one was complaining during that. They looked really strong in raiding in Season 3. In fact, they did quite a lot of throughput and kind of snuck under the radar in a lot of raiding guilds, kind of just underneath the shadow of what Mistweaver Monk was doing in a raiding environment. But Preservation Evoker also has this one glaring issue. They have quite a few issues, guys. Let's be real. One of the main ones is that some of their heals are skill shots. You have to shoot Temporal Anomaly through your allies to apply those echoes and that shield to them. You have to aim Dream Breath and hope that one of your ranged DPS doesn't move out of a mechanic behind you so that you can hit everyone with one of your giant heals. So it has those issues, but one of the big issues, especially once you push higher up in keys and damage starts to become more volatile, you have to respond with spot healing so much quicker, where your spot healing is a little awkward. You can rely on your golden hour procs to do nice juicy heals if they take a giant slam of damage, but if you really need to slam healing into someone, one of your avenues to do so is to apply an echo to them and then Verdant Embrace dashing to them to do a massive spot heal and then an echoing doubling onto that player. Or if you don't need that much spot healing, you can just Verdant Embrace to that player. One quick global cooldown. It's kind of like a giant shock heal. Think like a Vivacious Vivification Vivify, but on steroids, or like a Holy Word Serenity, something like that, except it moves you to that player. If you have a little bit more time, like say you have enough time for 2 global cooldowns to top up this person, you can echo them and then Verdant Embrace yourself. That way you're not put out of position. But all of these are kind of just roundabout ways to get the same outcome that other specs have, but it just has a drawback. So their spot healing is a little sus, which is the best word I can think of, as you go up in higher keys. Because like I said, you either need to do it instantly, putting yourself out of position or possibly getting yourself into danger, or do it over 2 global cooldowns, which in high keys sometimes is just not good enough. So with all that said, they're choosing to go back to their tier 1 or their Season 1 tier set. And I'm such a fan of this tier set. It was really solid. It made some of their lesser played spells or some of their less impactful spells feel more impactful, and just filled this gap or this play style in, what's the right word? It just feels clunky trying to spot heal people as an evoker. They have tons of AoE heals, just in Mythic Plus, just their spot healing seemed a little lacking. So let's talk about their new tier set, or their season 1 tier set. So their 2 set, it empowers their empowered spells increase reversions healing by 35% for 6 seconds. So if you can spread a bunch of reversions out with all your echoes, and then you do a dream breath, you're gonna have just rolling hots that are gonna go crazy for 6 seconds. Honestly, it's really cool, and reversion, just getting more juice to it, making it more impactful. It's one of those kind of like Renewing Mist, where it's just one of those 2 charge hots. That's a small hot, but it's in your rotation because of all of its synergy. It doesn't have that much synergy or as much as Renewing Mist, but it's very similar in that sense, where you have to keep it rolling, keep those charges low, or keep yourself from getting to 2 charges, and having it be more impactful is just really good. Not to mention, it just is one of their methods of doing spot healing. So all in all, small thumbs up there. But then their 4 set is, I think, what really won this vote for this tier set. So Reversion's healing has a chance to cause your next Living Flame to cast instantly, which is amazing, but it also juices it up a little bit and deal 20% increased damage or healing. And the fact that this has a damage application is what I think kind of gives a bunch of these tier sets a bonus. You'll see a lot of these tier sets that have some form of doing more damage they tend to be more liked by most Mythic Plus healers, because then you can use their benefits to boost your damage. And this one does that. You can get instant Living Flames for damage if you need to, or you can just have a charge stored up and spot heal someone. Have 2 charges stored up, and on the move, cast 2 Living Flames on people without having to use your dash. And it's just really good for spot healing. So all in all, I think Preservation Invoker is looking to be really good for Mythic Plus. I mean, we come over here to the Season 1 Mythic Plus rankings. You don't see them like in the top 10 here, but if you remember back in Season 1, there was a time where there was nothing but Evokers and Druids. Like, groups would not accept anything that was not one of these 2 healers into their keys. And they were actually nerfed pretty hard. I believe both of these specs were nerfed pretty hard to kind of open up the meta. And it barely did it. It cracked that door open. You see some of these other healers that got buffs kind of snuck their way in. But Evoker was looking really solid at Mythic Plus, and part of it was this tier set. This tier set was really good for Mythic Plus. And then as far as rating goes, their rating was still fine. They were doing pretty solid HPS. Now, once again, they did see a lot of nerfs since then to kind of open up the meta. But for them to kind of out-throughput Mistweavers, that kind of goes to show you. Although the Season 1 Mistweaver tier set was kind of sus, but yeah, their throughput was amazing, because they had these little mini ramps with their reversions. They had an easier time sniping, healing, and keeping your party safe, keeping people from dying because of these instant Living Flames. And they still had access to giant Emerald Communion ramps. Yes, they'll be a little less good because you won't have as many echoes as you did in Season 3, but it still will be absolutely powerful, especially because they've gone back to their former power, Temporal Anomaly, and Resonating Spheres. So all in all, a great tier set. It would be a great time to play Preservation Invoker in Season 4. And as one of the healer specs that kind of struggles with own self-survivability, you now have a giant variety of trinkets that can help make you more safe, keep you from dying in Mythic Plus. So that void in playing Evoker, like that downfall to playing Evoker, is filled because of just how powerful trinkets can be. So you can go like Fyrax Rage Heart and Brewkeeper's Promise from Diurna if you spend your Bullion on those, and you should be just totally fine. It would be an excellent time to main Evoker. Moving on to Restoration Druid, they are keeping their Season 3 tier set. For those of you who don't know much about it, it plays around Grove Guardians, or these trees that you spawn in to help you heal. I believe that part of this comes from, or this vote kind of came from the fact that Restoration Druids saw pretty major reworks to get Grove Guardians into the game or inject it into their kit. Things like Flourish got nerfed or just got changed a bit, which was kind of what I believe their Season 2 tier set really played around. So that kind of knocked that one out of contention. And then their Season 1 tier set was just a little bit more forgettable. So also they are seeing a lot of success in Season 3, in particular in Mythic Plus. that a lot of people just wanted this tier set to stay because it just allows them to sit in cat form a little bit longer, get a little bit more damage global off, because their Grove Guardians can kind of fill the maintenance healing void during pulls. They can weave in and out of cat form more, and while they're in cat form, they can summon these guys without interrupting their damage rotation. And this playstyle has led to them doing amazing in Mythic Plus. I believe this is the Mythic Plus for Season 3. As you see here, they are dominating up there with Mistweaver in Season 3 for Mythic Plus because of just how much damage they can do. Once you get to this high-end key level, there are basically a couple boxes that you need to fill as a healer to see what you can do or how good you are in these high-end keys. One of them is, can you survive? And Druid doesn't really have too much trouble surviving if you can weave into bear form before big damage instances. But also, how much damage can you do? Can you help us time this plus 31? Or can we time this key even? So that is why Druid has kind of shined, because it just does so much damage, and it can survive those yes/no checks of can you live this mechanic. So therefore, it just has been pushed toward the top. And part of this playstyle, like I said, is just the fact that you can sit in that cat weaving form more or longer on bosses and do more maintenance healing outside or during, without having to swap to Druid form to get your healing off. Now, in terms of rating, however, their throughput has looked fine. It's nothing exceptional. In fact, it has one of the lowest minimums of all the healers. I believe, yeah, the lowest minimum of all the healers. So has a lot of variance between like the best players and the not so good Restoration Druids. But a lot of guilds just need a Druid just for the buff. They also might need a roar for some mechanics. There was a lot of roar requirements in Amir Drasil. There are a lot of roar requirements in Seasons 1 and 2 raids. So Druids are still going to be desirable. No one's going to kick you out of the raid just because you're playing Restoration Druid. The only person that would really do that is yourself. If you are someone who does not enjoy the Grove Guardian playstyle in a raid environment, then you should not main Restoration Druid. Some people really love that pet healing aspect, having something help you do the healing, or having like AFK healing happen during downtime, or just being able to drink a mana potion while you're still doing some amount of healing. Some people really enjoy that, but some people really hate it because you don't have as much agency over who is getting healed, because the trees kind of do a lot of the deciding for you. So once again, if you are someone who does not enjoy this playstyle in a raid environment, then I would definitely opt out of Restoration Druid. But if you're someone who is just pushing high-end keys, or just pushing keys with a casual friend group, Druid is an absolutely excellent choice. And there's a lot of actions per minute because you're weaving in and out of cat form and Druid stance and bear stance. But it's super powerful. It works really well with some of the trinkets that are coming back from Seasons 1 and Seasons 2. Like, think Beacon. Think like Feral Druid now, but you have Beacon of the Beyond and Borellorelos, or whatever that trinket's called. You just do insane damage, or you have Fyrax and, like I said, Broodkeeper's Promise, just to keep yourself nice and healthy. So if you're someone who is just a Mythic Plus player, or you're someone who also does enjoy how this current playstyle plays in raiding, then absolutely choose Restoration Druid. They're kind of the only spec. Well, they're one of like 2 specs, I would say, that has this pet healing playstyle. So definitely, if you're into that playstyle, definitely look for this. If you're also into cat weaving, stay Restoration Druid, because they do that so much. Now, moving on to the Pink class or Holy Paladin, they are the only healing spec that has their Season 2 tier set winning out. And this is a weird one for me, because Holy Paladin, if you don't know, has seen so many changes, like countless changes from the start of Season 2 to the end of Season 3, including like what I would call like reworks at this point, because there's so many nerfs, so many changes to make them not as dominant, which we will get into. But like, this is just one patch note, and they have like 10 changes, and 10 insane changes, like a 20% nerf, or a 20% overall nerf to Glimmer of Light's overhealing, going into a shield, and then less damage mitigation, less shielding from another thing, like a lot less damage, like so many changes coming from Season 2. Let's talk about their current tier set, Season 3. How it worked is your Holy Shocks basically came with like a hot element where it would just tick away healing. So it kind of added a lot of throughput in like a raiding environment, but they took a lot of power out of your shock healing, like your instant healing, in order to kind of like shift some of that power. And then the 4-piece, all it said was Daybreak went from a minute cooldown to a 45-second cooldown. So all in all, like just a very not very exciting tier set, but there were some very big positives in their current tier set. Did have a damage element because your Holy Shocks also came with a dot aspect. And then Daybreak kind of becoming a lesser cooldown kind of did fill the void of what we're going to talk about when we talk about this, the season 2 tier set of they went from basically having 6 major cooldowns down to 5 because this tier set turns one of their other abilities into kind of a mini healing cooldown in a Mythic Plus environment. So having that cooldown reduction was nice. And then also Daybreak is just so powerful. It does nice AoE healing and then converts into single target healing because it makes your Holy Shocks like machine gun 3 times. Really cool ability. But they chose their season 2 tier set. Now, what would have led them to choose this? I mean, I just don't get it. You know, like what about season 2 tells Holy Paladins like they were good at that point? Like I just don't understand. I'm kidding. Like hopefully you guys understand. I'm kidding. But look at this. They were so dominant, especially in 10.1.7. I'm sure you guys remember God Comp as it was called. But yeah, they have seen so many changes since then. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be a very underwhelming experience for people that played in season 2 and felt the power of all their healing, doing so much healing, having their new tier set, which I guess we can go ahead and get into. Their Holy Shocks crits healed for 60% more. So you're losing that extra hot aspect, but you're gaining just bonus healing from your crit strikes. Which, if you don't know, there's kind of like this meme in the Holy Paladin community where Holy Paladins are supposed to be the shock heal healer, where they use Holy Shocks to shock heal, but then they also have like Word of Glory, which is supposed to be like a spot heal, giant slam of spot healing. But they've just nerfed that into the ground. All of their spenders feel so bad right now, where it's just, I don't know, I'm expecting them to buff their spenders a little bit more to kind of account for some of the nerfs they've gotten since season 2. But to see that they're gaining some of that instant healing back, I think that's what drew a lot of people to this tier set, where now your shock heals are going to do more. You're going to see health bars when you heal them top up a lot quicker. It's going to be a lot like easier, a lot better to play. It's going to feel a lot better in a Mythic Plus environment. Also, they turn these 1 minute kind of talents, like not really cooldowns, Holy Prism and Light's Hammer, into actual cooldowns, like very powerful healing abilities. So I remember in Raid, they were taking Light's Hammer, which is like a circle you put down. It just sits there and pulses healing every second to like 6 people inside of it. And then Holy Prism, you can either use it on an ally and then it'll hit them and then bounce out and do damage to like 5 enemies, or you can use it on an enemy. It'll hit them, bounce out, do healing to 5 allies, which, as you can imagine, is really solid. I think it's a 30-second cooldown in a Mythic Plus environment. And then not to mention, their Holy Shocks are going to be reducing that cooldown from less or to less than 30 seconds. So they can use this button pretty often. It actually does a sizable amount of healing. You can combat big boss slams with just pressing Holy Prism and save your major cooldowns for the next big slam. It feels really smooth in a Mythic Plus environment. Also, having a way to kind of benefit from your group being stacked in a raid environment, since your Light of the Dawn just doesn't pack that same punch as it used to in raiding, is nice. Light's Hammer feels good in raid, Holy Prism feels really good in Mythic Plus, and then those get further extended by their 4Ps. So Light's Hammer heals 100% like more often, and it'll just sit there and tick Holy Power into you. So you can, yes, your Holy Spenders or your Holy Power Spenders aren't as good as they have been in the past, but you can do them a lot more often with this out in a raid environment, add up a lot more bonus healing while your Light Hammer is active. And then Holy Prism's healing is increased by 80%, and it either gives you 1 Holy Power if you cast it on an enemy to heal 5 allies, or give you 3 Holy Power if you cast it on an ally to do damage. So this tier set is just really solid, and I do think it can kind of revive Holy Paladins from where they are currently. In raid, they are just very lackluster, and then in a Mythic Plus environment, they are just kind of not really to be seen. Like, this is one of the specs that when I was trying to get every healer to 3k, they definitely were the hardest, like by a lot. You see, they aren't even in the top, what is this, top 40 at all. So yeah, this tier set is a great thumbs up, a great step in the right direction, just going back to a time where they had a very impactful tier set, but I am worried about just how many nerfs they had. Because, for example, they also played, I think it's called Avenging Wrath in Season 2 raiding, that was like extremely powerful. It just basically was ancient teachings for monks, but on steroids. And then they just gutted it because it was doing too well. Like they definitely have seen so many changes, but I can guarantee you that if you choose Holy Paladin, you're gonna have a much, much, much better time in season 4 than you did in season 3. You won't have as good of a time as you did in season 2, but I promise you, you will not regret taking Holy Paladin, as the shock heals are going to kind of bring the class fantasy back. They're also going to have more of a cooldown here. Daybreak's not going to feel as impactful. However, now that I'm thinking about it, they also nerfed how much mana Daybreak gives you back to kind of offset how much of its cooldown was reduced. So I think Holy Paladins are in for a couple more changes to kind of fix some of the things they've had to tune in the past. But yeah, it's going to be a good time for Holy Paladins. They might not be top of the meta in either Raid or Mythic Plus, but you're not going to kind of be in the same state in Mythic Plus where no one's going to accept you, and you will be invited to raid groups because they just provide so much utility as a one-of in Raid. So once again, if you're looking for that, if you miss that class fantasy that Holy Paladins have given you in the past or want to try it out, now's a great time. Next up, we're going to talk about Priest, and we're going to start things off with Holy Priest. Now, both Priests have kind of seen reworks since their Season 1 tier sets, so a lot has changed, but Holy Priest is keeping their Season 3 tier set, and it actually was closer than I thought it would be. I've felt that this tier set, this current tier set, the Season 3 one, is very good. It plays very fluid, and I really did enjoy it. So let's go ahead and talk about what it does if you don't know. So your Holy Word Serenity and your Holy Word Sanctify both apply a renew to their targets that they heal. And then that kind of sets like a chain reaction or a feedback loop of your Renew's healing has a chance to cause your Sanctify and Serenity to not consume a charge when cast and cost less mana. And you can have up to 2 charges of this. So all in all, this tier set is absolutely amazing for a player experience. It's a lot of fun to play with. Just being able to just throw 4 Sanctifies on the ground in a raid environment in a row, just back to back to back to back, or 4 Serenities to spot heal 4 people, or more importantly, something that's very important to talk about since this trinket is making a comeback in Season 4, is Seedling. Seedling is unreal as a cooldown for this spec. In fact, let me just show you. So Seedling converts your single target healing into AoE healing. So I guess, I don't know which dummies heal here, but if we throw down the Seedling and then we heal into it, it's just going to AoE, like send out that healing to everyone in the party, which I guess now on the PTR I can't really show you guys. But you can imagine if you had 2 charges stacked up of your current tier set, it just stacks up. You can do insane machine gun healing into the Seedling, making it actually a really good trinket in Mythic Plus as well, since it kind of becomes your best AoE healing cooldown as a trinket. It's just really weird, but having the Seedling come back, I'm trying to point out to you guys that it is so good for this spec. But that kind of goes hand in hand with another major change that they have seen recently. If you don't know, they have gotten a complete overhaul in the bottom chunk of their talent tree, so they can basically take a lot of talents that they used to not be able to at the same time, like Divine Word, and I believe Divine Image used to share a node, but now you can have both at the same time, which is really cool because you can enter these massive damage instances where you can chastise with Divine Word boost, so now your damage does 20% more, which I guess I'm kind of blocking, but then also summon a damaging Naru that'll sit there and mimic your damaging spells. And then they completely reworked Imperial Blaze, which I'm glad I'm not covering it, but they totally reworked this. It used to be a 1-minute cooldown, but now it's just a passive. Whenever you chastise, you just get 2 AoE or 2 single target Holy Fires that then do AoE damage. So you can just amp up your damage insanely, and that kind of gets taken to the next level when you use it during your main cooldown, Apotheosis, because Apotheosis works where you regain a charge of all 3 of your holy words, but more importantly, the spells that take away that cooldown reduction on those holy words are now amplified. You're getting a lot more time off those cooldowns. So once again, this forms another feedback loop, which if you have not seen yet, I want to take some time to show you. So I'm going to use Chastise, and then I'm going to use the 2 instant Holy Fires that come with it, and then I'm just going to Smite spam to reset Chastise. I want to show you what it looks like outside of Apotheosis. So we do our single target stun and slam, and then we just do big AoE damage, and then from there, we just spam smite, and this cooldown slowly ticks away with every cast of smite. You see, it's already kind of crazy because now we already have a single target stun and big damage up again. It's a feedback loop, right? Well, let me show you what it looks like during your apotheosis. So let's pop apotheosis. Well, first let's chastise, holy fire, and then let's pop apotheosis, chastise, holy fire. Look at that cooldown. Holy fire, smite, and then holy fire. Well, I guess chastise, holy fire, smite, and then you just rinse and repeat. Like, you can just chain CC, chain lock down one thing and do massive AoE damage on big pools. And the dot now stacks. So look at how much duration I have on this dot. That is so good for a boss fight, because now this dot is just going to tick away for an entire boss fight. So basically what I'm trying to say is that Seedling still being basically relevant in the game. In fact, it's just such an insane trinket. It's so good for Holy Priest, and the new rework feels so fluid, feels amazing. In fact, let me pull back up this screen because I want to show you guys the Season 3 Break the Meta. This happened, it's ongoing right now as I'm recording this video, but you see there is so much Holy Priest toward the top of the Break the Meta leaderboards, and part of that is just because how much damage they can crank out now. This little combo, or this new rework that they've gotten, works so well in their favor and looks really good, and it's a lot of fun to play. You can do massive damage in Mythic Plus, but you can also do massive healing in Raid. Obviously not as much as they did in Season 1, but they've also seen so many nerfs since Season 1. So all in all, Holy Priest kind of was seen as an underdog in Season 3 Mythic Plus, so I highly recommend that you give Holy Priest a shot, especially if you have not tried them since these reworks, as this tier set is a great time to play, and so is this rework. All the thumbs are up in Holy Priest land, and Season 4 is looking to be just as amazing as all the seasons past have been for Holy Priest, if not better. Moving on to Discipline Priest, and I think the Discipline Priest vote is like a clear example of how a lot of people voted with Mythic Plus more in mind than rating in mind. And that kind of becomes apparent because if you look at their Season 2 rating numbers versus their Season 3 rating numbers, their Season 3 rating numbers are not bad at all. They're actually really solid toward the top, competing in throughput with Resto Druid, like beating Resto Druid. So all in all, really good. But in Season 2, they were head and shoulders above everything else because their Season 2 tier set made their Holy Word Radiance instant, or Power Word Radiance instant cast. Cost less mana, instant cast. It was really awesome. Made the ramps feel very fluid, but it didn't really have that much of an application in Mythic Plus other than allowing you to cast it on the move, I guess, which is really good in Mythic Plus if you're having to move for a mechanic and need AoE healing. Having a charge saved up of their Season 2 tier set was nice, but once again, their Season 3 tier set beat out the others, and for good reason, especially since Discipline Priest has seen a rework coming into Season 3, that it was kind of designed to work with their Season 3 tier set. It makes sense that their Season 3 tier set won out the vote. But what does this tier set do? Well, their 2-piece says that Smite and Penance just do more damage, and Smite will extend the duration of an act of atonement for 2 seconds. So every time that you're smiting, you're extending the duration of an atonement. So if you just get enough haste and just spam enough smites, you can keep a party with atonement until you gain another charge of Power Word Radiance. It feels really fluid, and you'll be surprised at how much time you can add to your atonements with this smite spam. But also, Penance doing more damage is excellent because when you get your Mindbender out, it just does so much AoE healing, just capitalizes on your ramp and raid. It just feels really solid and actually packs a massive punch, especially if you stack all of its buffs together to make it just hit harder, hit more, and it just feels really good. But now their 4-piece is kind of what I think is the main reason this tier set was kind of very powerful in Mythic Plus. So Smite has a chance to cast an additional time during your Shadow Covenant, dealing 80% of your spell power in shadow damage. So now your Smite is basically duplicating itself, shooting out a holy version, or a holy damage version, but then also it comes with a shadow version whenever you're in your shadow covenant, or whenever your mindbender is out, is another way to look at it. So when you summon your mindbender, your smite spam is twice as effective, if not more, because that shadow damage will then be buffed by your shadow covenant. So you just do insane single target damage. You get a lot of extension with all of those bonus smites that are coming out during your shadow covenant. And then not to mention, you're even more rewarded with the new rework for smite spamming, or just smite, 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 smite while your Shadow Covenant's out, because it reduces the cooldown of your Mindbender by a lot. So where a lot of other healer specs have to plan out their cooldowns, like Holy Priest, for example, if you come up on multiple different packs back to back, you have to think, okay, I can Apotheosis this one, and then I guess I can use Seedling if you're using that trinket for the next one, and then for the third one I just have to be really careful I won't have another cooldown up. I can maybe like Symbol of Hope if you're taking that, but yeah, Disc Priest doesn't really have that problem because they just Mindbender every single pool. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of like Chi-Ji on steroids. It's like, it basically is Chi-Ji, how Mistweaver's layer Chi-Ji and Shaylun's gift, they do that, but it's just Mindbender, 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 and then stacking other cooldowns on top of that. So like I said, if you get enough haste, you can really chain these Mindbenders on every single pool, and that quality of life just beats out the quality of life of having instant power word radiances. So if you're someone who did play in season 2 and really enjoyed that, like I did, I really enjoyed the instant power word radiances, I can guarantee you that this current tier set, the season 3 tier set, is more powerful and just allows you to do more damage. And like I said earlier in the video, just having a tier set that gives you some amount of damage as well as healing is just very desirable in a Mythic Plus environment, and this absolutely does that. But this is where the big but comes in. If you don't enjoy spamming the same button on a caster over and over, and it's a very quick cast, you just press it often, then this playstyle might not be for you, or smite not be for you. I'm sorry, I had to. But yeah, you do press smite a ton because you really have to get those resets. And there's a lot of times where you summon your Mindbender, you do a penance, and then you smite, 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 and then your penance comes off cooldown again. But it's just more worth it to smite spam so that you just get that reset again. And it just feels a little clunky, and just it can get very boring. However, maining Disc Priest or choosing Priest to main is always good, because if you get bored of one, you can just try out the other. I went the other way. You can just play the other one, and having this duality or this modality of choosing between Discipline Priest and Holy Priest right now, both of their tiers or their season 3 tier sets are very fun. Both of their reworks are very fun, and if you get burnt out on one, the opposite playstyle is, like I said, opposite. It's completely different, and you will enjoy alternating between both Priest playstyles. So if you're choosing Priest, you are not making a bad decision by any means, and in fact, a lot of people play Priest. In fact, Priest, just every tier, have the most players, and there's a reason for that. Like, you look at this, they have a combined total of like, what, 18,200 or 300. So a lot of people play Priest, and if you join those people, you will not be disappointed, because they look really good in Mythic Plus on both specs right now. They look really good in rating. Oh, and I forgot to mention for Priest, they both have a pretty major drawback in Mythic Plus, where you're really reliant on the group for kicks. Since you don't have a kick yourself, you really just stare at a cast bar going off. You're like, please someone kick that. And if they don't, you're kind of screwed. But Holy Priests, their new rework, they now have more tools to deal with that. They can chain stun people. Like I said, they can chain stun a caster. They'll have their kick up more often, or their stun more often. And they both do have an AoE stop, which looks really good in Season 4. AoE stops are necessary in Season 4, so they do have that going for them. But if you don't like relying on other groups for kicks, definitely look toward another healer, specifically one of the melee ones, since they have a melee kick cooldown. But Holy Priest also does lack an external, but we're coming back into a season where we get the Ward trinket, which Ward is an external shield. It's very good, and you'll see a lot of Holy Priests kind of opt for that just so they have some way to give an external. But Holy Priest has excellent spot healing. Discipline Priest has excellent AoE healing, and they're both a very fun time. You will not be disappointed if you choose these two classes, or this class, or these two specs. Now, moving over to my home spec, Mistweaver Monk. You guys know I could talk about Mistweaver all day. I love this spec, no matter the iteration. But I have to admit, this current iteration with their tier set from Season 3 is It's up there with the top 2 iterations that I've ever seen. Like, I loved Sanctum of Domination raid tier for Mistweaver, but I also really loved Amir Drasil. Like, this tier set is so much fun because it's a mini game inside of the spec. It literally is a mini game that you can play in a raid environment. But let's go and talk about what the tier set does. So whenever you apply a Renewing Mist, so those are the 2 charges of a hot that you have that are on an 8-second cooldown, or if you spawn one from some of your talents, like a lot of your talents spawn a free Renewing Mist for a short duration, those also come with this buff called Chi Harmony. So Chi Harmony will sit on that target for 8 seconds, and it boosts all of your healing done to them by 50%. So your spot healing is unreal, incredible. Like, for example, in season 3, if Crushing Depths goes on someone, you apply a Renewing Mist and then you just spam healing into them. They're topped up in no time. You can feel extremely safe as a Mistweaver because since like season 1, at some point during Dragonflight, they have buffed Expel Harm to the max. And if you put a Renewing Mist on yourself and then Expel Harm, that is then boosted. So you can just feel so safe at all times. You have excellent defensives, and now your passive defensiveness has been buffed since Dragonflight started. So you were just a very tanky healer all in all. I'm sorry, I'm getting carried away. Let's just talk about the tier set still. So you apply this buff for 8 seconds, it boosts their healing. But then on top of that, 20% of all the healing that you do into that target that has the Chi Harmony is stored. And then once that Chi Harmony is either refreshed by applying another Renewing Mist or it falls off because its duration ends, it'll pop and disperse that healing that's stored up into every ally that has a Renewing Mist out. In Renewing Mist, you basically never have 0 out. If you do, you're doing something wrong, but you have a lot of talents that extend these durations. They just come with free Renewing Mist. You should never, I should say, sit at 2 charges of Renewing Mist. You'll always have some target for this healing to kind of pop and go into. Now in Mythic Plus, this is just really maintenance healing. You don't really play into this 4-piece that much. It's kind of just a bonus. And in fact, it's not that great of a bonus, if I'm being completely honest. But you do play around the actual buff itself, Chi Harmony, because like I said, it really just takes your spot healing to the next level. But then in raiding, that is where the 4-piece really shines, because you just pick a target that you have a Chi Harmony on, and that is the target that you heal. If Bob and Larry are both at 10% health, but Bob has a Chi Harmony on him, you just crank into Bob, and you'll just do more healing. You'll top him up quicker than if you picked Larry, and that healing will then be dispersed into all of your allies. It just really plays into itself because you're boosting the healing you're doing, which is then boosting how much is stored. It's just a really fun minigame and a really good time in raiding. And you'll see that especially on the meters. I mean, look at how much this top end of Mistweavers can do. Can just do insane throughput. And then that also plays into all the changes that I was talking about earlier, where you're just tankier. You have more cooldowns since you did in season 1. You just have so much more going for you over the seasons that they are now like top of the meta in Mythic Plus. And not only are these people playing a great spec because they chose Mistweaver, they're also having a great time. I can guarantee you Mistweaver is so much fun. In Mythic Plus, it plays like a DPS character with a great healing toolkit. Because in order to optimize your Mistweaver's healing, you first have to optimize their damage, because a lot of your maintenance healing is done through their damage. So all in all, if you want to change things up and not just play a point-and-click healer, then definitely give Mistweaver a shot if you play Mythic Plus. And if you enjoy the point-and-click healer, then guess what? They do that in raiding. So you basically, you get the best of both worlds. You get like a ranged-esque play style in Mythic in raiding, because although you are classified as a melee healer, you heal as if you were a ranged character, but you get that full-on melee punch and kick playstyle in Mythic Plus. So absolutely, Season 4 is a great time, and they're coming off of this high of Season 3 and nothing is changing. So yeah, it would just be such a good idea if you're looking to play something that's good and fun to pick Mistweaver. And if you do choose Mistweaver, I'm going to do a shameless plug here. I make Mistweaver videos all the time. guides, gameplays, so definitely hit subscribe if you want to just follow the channel and see how Mistweaver does or what you should be changing as the weeks go on. But Mistweaver, huge thumbs up. You will not be disappointed. It's a great time. There's a reason why 6,000 more people chose the Season 3 tier set, because it's just fun. It's fun. It really is. And then speaking of fun, we're going to finish out this video with Resto Shaman, which for those of you who followed along in my series where I try to get every healer to 3k IO last season, this was the standout class where I felt the most powerful, the most impactful in a Mythic Plus environment, and I had the most fun. Aside from Mistweaver, I had the most fun on Restoration Shaman because it just feels like you are in control of the game. And they aren't changing anything about their base kit, which is where all of that juice happens. In fact, in Season 4, a lot of their utility just gets better. I kid you not, it just gets better. Poison Cleansing Totem, having a double stun that you can then Totemic Recall to have 4 stuns back to back. Like, it's just insane with a short duration kick. I mean, like, all the utility that Restoration Shaman has is just why they are the Swiss Army knife and why they are so much fun to play in Season 3, and then once again, going to be fun to play in Season 4. But let's talk about their tier set. So their Season 1 tier set barely won out, and at first I was kind of shocked that their Season 1 tier set won. But I've repeated this throughout the video, having some amount of damage capability can really lead to a tier set winning this vote. And then also they were really solid in Season 1, partly due to kind of how they kept buffing and nerfing their chain heal. I remember, I think that was Season 1 where they just kept buffing it. They were really good for a week and then they nerf it. They were really bad for a week and then they finally found a sweet spot. But anyways, their tier set. Well, first let's talk about their current tier set. So how it works is your 2 spot healing spells and your chain heal, whoever you target will get a buff on them. And then all of your Riptides that you have active. So if you're in a raid environment, you have like 10 Riptides out active, then all of those 10 will be funneling some of their healing into the people that have that buff on them. It kind of works like how the reverse version of the Mistweaver tier set, if you want to kind of think of it like that. But it just led to a lot of healing in a raid environment, but it wasn't fun to play around. And then in a Mythic Plus environment, it really just didn't feel as impactful as a tier set should. But their Season 1 tier set, the one that did win, the one that they're going to be coming into Season 4 with, does feel that impactful. So how it works is you have this choice talent where you can either choose Healing Stream Totem, which is out. You have a higher uptime on Healing Stream Totem because the cooldown is a lot lower, or you can choose Cloudburst Totem, which has a longer cooldown, but is very impactful, but very skill-based. So depending on which one of these choose will kind of affect what your uptime of this buff will be. But while you have these totems active, your chance to critically strike is just increased by 10%. So you just get a free boost of 10% crit chance with a very solid uptime in rating and a very solid uptime in Mythic Plus with these 2 talents. Depending on how you take them, you can kind of pick and choose. But yeah, very solid uptime on just a free 10% crit strike chance. And this is where the damage capability comes in because your damage is also going to be boosted by roughly 10%. You're going to get free 10% crit chance on all of your damage and healing. And what's really cool about this is since you're doing more healing, you're going to be boosting or you're going to be healing into that Cloudburst Totem, which then stores the healing and then pops and heals everyone quicker. You're just going to do more healing from your Cloudburst. It's really cool. Your Cloudburst ramps feel incredible. But the 4 set does not have damage capabilities. It specifically mentions your heals. It says that your critical heals, which you're going to be doing more often, your critical heals now have 215% effectiveness instead of the normal 200% effectiveness. So you basically, this tier set gives you crit chance and crit healing. Very cool tier set. It's just a stat stick if you think about it, but you just play around 2 of your already really powerful mini cooldowns. I would call Cloudburst a cooldown, but I would call Healing Stream Totem a maintenance healing cooldown. Now, like I said, if you enjoyed Resto Shaman in Season 3, this is only an improvement, straight up, in terms of how fun it is and in terms of power level. Which, if you want to take my words, if you put any grains of salt into what I have to say, This was such an amazing time playing Resto Shaman to a 3K level that if you, I guarantee you, if you choose Restoration Shaman to main in Season 4, you will have an absolute blast. Like, so much fun. I guarantee you that. Now, with that out of the way, because like I said, they're just not losing anything, but they're only gaining a more fun tier set that actually is pretty powerful and push their numbers up to pretty good levels in Season 1. You see in Season 3, they also did pretty solid throughput, but you compare it to the top-end Mistweaver, and they were really outshined. But now, you know what? They're on kind of a level playing field in Season 1. But yeah, I'm excited to see if they do kind of put up better numbers in Season 3 or in Season 4, since they've seen a couple buffs since this Season 1 iteration. But in terms of Mythic Plus, they've kind of always existed on the leaderboards. Like, this is their Season 1 numbers. They were kind of there. They were up there because this did give them damage. It gave them more healing, and they just have such an excellent toolkit. The only thing that really kind of keeps them back in Season 3 for high-end keys is their survivability, and their current tier set really just does not give that much in a Mythic Plus environment. So both of those being fixed by the Trinket pool and also just having a better tier set for a Mythic Plus environment are excellent for their pushing in Mythic Plus. So yeah, like I said, just excellent time to choose Restoration Shaman as your main. However, there is a caveat. If you do take my advice and main Restoration Shaman in Season 4, I do want to show you something. So like I said, how their tier set works is while you have either Healing Stream Totem or Cloudburst Totem active, you just get free crit chance, which right here it says 15% bonus crit chance. But I do want to show you how it works. There is a bug which existed all of Season 1 and never got changed and still is in the game. So at this point, we can only assume that it's not a bug, it's intended. But if you choose Healing Stream Totem instead of Cloudburst Totem, since it has a lower or a higher uptime or a lower cooldown, you can overlap your Healing Stream Totem. So I want to show you guys, if I Healing Stream Totem, I'll get the buff from my tier set. My crit strike chance is increased by 15%. Let's watch this duration of this Healing Stream Totem, and we're going to summon the second charge of Healing Stream Totem now. So how the tier set reads is, as long as I have a Healing Stream Totem, I should have this buff. But when the first one went away, although we refreshed or we put down another Healing Stream Totem, our buff went away. So if you do decide to play Resto Shaman, just be aware that by refreshing or putting down a second Healing Stream Totem, you don't like reset the duration of that buff. It's attached to the first one that you apply. It's just very weird. I warned you guys. Well guys, that is gonna do it for this video of what I think you should play in Season 4. Now obviously I try to make this where I just talked about what each one has going for them so that you can make your decision on your own. However, because I know a lot of people are gonna ask me, what am I gonna main in Season 4? Guys, it's Mistweaver Monk. I'm not gonna stop playing Mistweaver Monk until it stops being fun. And right now it is such a good time. So if you were to just ask me what are 2 specs that I would recommend you trying in Season 4, I would say probably, I would give you 3. I'm going to completely obliterate your answer. I would say Mistweaver for sure. Restoration Shaman is definitely hands down, give it a shot. And then Hpriest. The new reworks are a ton of fun to play and it feels really powerful in those pug environment keys. But guys, that's enough of me. I've been talking for over an hour at this point. I got to get editing this video. I'll see you guys in the next one, and I promise you, I have so much content coming for you in Season 4, so stay tuned. That is what has been taking up my entire time. Some of you have been asking where I've been because my content has slowed down. Trust me, I'm working on a lot of things in the background that will be posted soon, so make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss when that goes live. Also, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, make sure and hit the like button, as it shows me that you like this style video and like my kind of hands-off approach of telling you what to do, basically. So yeah, make sure and hit the like button on your way out. Comment what you think about these healers down below. What are you going to be maining? Definitely tell me and get a good discussion going down there. And as always, a special thank you to the patrons of this channel. If your name is on the screen, I cannot thank you enough for allowing me to live my dream or trying to be a YouTuber. So thank you guys so much. And if you want to join their names on the screen, make sure and check out that link down in the description below. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. My name's Ninja7. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, take care.